Today this is I hope a fun project for you. My name is Carmel Buckley. I teach in the art department and I often teach beginning drawing, Art 2100 beginning drawing for students across campus. They don't necessarily, often one or two art majors, but generally they're not when I teach this class. And this is sort of based on a project that I do with the students. And I'm just going to read this. Pattern Doodle description. The Pattern Doodle project explores the primal human instinct to draw and be creative using the imagination, a piece of paper, and a black pen or marker. The second major theme addressed in this project is the unconscious or subconscious mind as enabling the drawing to take shape without formal academic concerns. So you don't have to, when you start this project, I'm going to actually just close this here. When you start this project, you don't have to know what you're drawing. You start almost really like doodling and you allow your imagination, it's a bit like dreaming, you allow your imagination to just take you forward, or you start drawing one thing, it becomes something else. It might be figurative, it might be abstract, and then it takes shape. So these are drawings from my class over the last couple of years. And you see this student here, I think they started with a garlic, and then there's, it's almost like what you eat, what goes into your head, and then a brain, abstract pattern, and then it becomes almost like a personage, like a head. I'm just going to go through these quite quickly, and maybe I should do, let me see, yeah, this is better. Here's another one, started off as a pattern and it became a dragon. It doesn't necessarily have to become figurative, but that is, you know, whatever happens really. Here you see on each tooth there's a face. The tongue almost becomes a river. The face becomes an abstract pattern. And actually, I would just say as well, each student has, you know, either worked to the edge of the page or made it like sit, like the head or the dragon sit on the page in this as this form. Here's another one. So really, they're quite open-ended. And when you start, you really don't have to think about what's going to happen, but your brain actually, it's just sort of the subconscious and the conscious, but your brain, I think, does consciously, which is inevitable, kick in some way. And here's another where you see this sort of checkerboard, so abstract cutting up of really making this pattern, and then it becomes again like a head, and this hand sort of illusionistic, sort of poking out of the paper. I don't know if you notice with the drawing implement, if you use a thin line, if you've got just a pen, a black line pen, you'll get a thinner line. And if you use a Sharpie marker or a black marker, you'll get a much denser line. And just as you're looking at these drawings, that's worth taking note of. And you'll notice that some students maybe just stick with one and others use both. And again, that's completely your choice. Here's another where it starts to be, you know, the subconscious is sort of almost drawing heads and then there's sort of patterning in between. And actually, when she finished this, she said it was almost like hair and the actual face is missing. This student started making these really interesting patterns. And at one point when I went up, I said, are you going to enlarge on it? And I think she'd done one, maybe the left or the right eye. And it started to suggest to her the rectangle of the paper started to suggest to her a face. And so these elements remain separate, but you can see this sort of smiling face beaming out from the sheet of paper. Here's another, again, very abstract patterns that again sort of come together, suggesting a human form in some way, a human torso and head, or even headdress. Here's another. And I would say each student really didn't know what they were doing. This, I'm sorry, this is a little out of focus, but I think it's just so detailed. Again, just like a doodle that goes further and further, whatever comes into their mind, they draw in they put in the drawing. Here's another one where this sort of abstract shape in the center becomes a giant tear. And again, you can see fine line and darker line where some of the elements are filled up. Actually, they're not even line anymore, they're filled up with the Sharpie marker. And here's another one that often we call more like surreal, and surreal is like the imagination or dreaming, this sort of this hand and these eyes that seem to not really exist in sort of real space. And so it's very dreamlike. And here's another very patterned one. And again, you notice generally done with very fine marker. And, you know, as I say, just whatever your choice is, there isn't really a wrong choice or a wrong beginning. And you can start in the center of the paper, you can start at the edge of the paper, you can fill the paper, or as the smiling face has these different elements that draw something specific in the end, although the student wasn't sure what she was going to do when she started. Again, you see the patterning on the arm, and maybe it started with the patterning and then it became that form. Again, a lot of abstract lines and figuration. And a patterning here. And again here, I think the student started with eyes, and then the eyes became human and partly birds, and almost like looking downwards like a dog or a fox. And so this is the end of my demonstration. So I think for you all really now is to pick up your pen and paper. And really, you can think of being sort of in school. I think we all doodled when we're in school, but really this is more intentional doodling, starting anywhere on the paper, seeing what happens, and then responding to it and taking it further. And really, this should be something that's quite good fun. I don't know if you'll finish it in the time allotted, because these students actually have it's really more just under like a 2 3/4 hour class. So this might be something you start and then you take home and you continue with it and you see where it goes. And it's really everyone who's done it in the class may have been a little bit like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but always ended up with results that they were quite happy with. So thank you, and I'll let everyone begin. And Julie, shall I stop sharing the screen now, or?
You can stop if you'd like, or you could leave those up as inspiration, maybe.
Yeah, shall I run through them again?
I think you can, yeah. And the students can, you guys can go ahead and start your doodle now. And then, you can kind of take a look at these and maybe draw some inspiration from some of these designs.
Yeah, so I'll just, what I can do, I don't know if there are any latecomers. I can start with the introduction again and just go through it again, if you think that's a good idea, or just go through the images. What do you suggest, Julie?
I think you could probably just go through the images.
Okay, so I'll just go back up through the images. And I can do that during the session for, 2 or 3 times. Actually, it's quite interesting just looking at this one. You can almost see this now as two nostrils, these round parts here, and you can almost see this as a mouth, although it's really quite playful. So Julie, does this finish around now, 1:10?
Yes, I was actually just about to chime in. So 1:10 is when these courses technically end, but if any of the students, if you want to stay on for another 10 minutes and keep drawing or so, you're more than welcome to. If you have any questions for us, you can enter those into the Q&A and we'll answer those for you. The next session will be a virtual open house. Just gonna turn it over a little bit. So the next session will be a virtual open house from 1:30 to 2:30. If you have any questions about the link or password that you need to join your open house, I can give those to you as well. But yeah, I think within like the next 10 minutes or so, we'll wrap up. So again, feel free to let us know if you have any questions.
Shall I keep on sharing or shall I stop sharing?
I think you can keep sharing a little bit more.
Shall I just go through the images one more time?
Yeah, why don't you go through them one more time? We still have a few students, it looks like.
And if they ask questions, will you watch out for them coming in, Julie, or is that something?
Yeah, I will monitor the Q&A box for you.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
have a question that came through that you might be able to answer, Carmel.
Yeah.
The student asked if they wanted to pick up a fine arts minor, what kind of classes would they be taking?
I think there's a whole variety. There is a minor sheet. You could focus on maybe, it could be you like ceramics, and there's a list of classes, sculpture. There's also general fine art. I think you can pick any that are offered. And I think to do a minor, you need to do, as far as my memory goes, is you need to do five classes in the art department. Looking at the sheet and seeing which courses interest you. There's a breakdown telling you for each one, whether it's fine art, ceramics, sculpture, glass, printmaking. And often I find that when I teach students who are on campus, not in the art department, often they've taken one or two drawing classes already, or sometimes three. So it's not many more to get a minor. And I would say that some of the students say they like putting art in their curriculum because it's a break from really intense academic study. And so, there is definitely an uptake for doing that.
Thank you. I would also add to visit art.osu.edu. And as Carmel mentioned, they have all of those specific areas of study listed out that you can dive into.
Yeah, there's a whole page of information with quite all the details of all the different classes that, that you can take. I think it's interesting, the more you look at these, that sense of pattern and abstraction and figuration overlapping and one folding into the other and then back again.